Hi, everybody. It's Michelle Hill, your legacy builder at Winning Proof, and this is another edition of Winning Proof Unscripted. And I'm so excited to have Jill Baxter on today. And I'm going to read you a little bit about Jill, and then we're going to dive into the questions. So Jill is the daughter of Hall of Fame football coach Ron McBride. So she was almost born on a football field. Jill combined her love for the game of football with a passion for the law to become a leading sports agent and attorney. She's been representing professional football players, coaches, media, and college athletic administrators for over 25 years. So, how are you today, Jill?
I'm great. How are you, Michelle? I'm so glad to see you.
Wonderful. Same here. We have the greatest conversations. So that's all we're going to do today is have a conversation. So tell people that are watching a little bit about your business and how you serve your clients.
Well, I am a sports law attorney, and like Michelle said, I've been doing it for over 25 years. And basically, I have several different ways that I can represent clients. One of them is my coach's consulting package. Like if you're a coach and you want representation, I actually have a flat fee that I charge for the year, and I do their contract negotiations. I help them with their marketing, and I go through a pretty extensive workbook that allows them to find out who they are, what they represent, and what their long-term and short-term plans are. Other things that I have in my business that I've really enjoyed doing is mentoring a few sports agents who want to be sports agents, and I have an online course for that called Sports Agent Academy. And then I represent NFL players. So if anybody's going to be a 2021 draft pick and has any questions about eligibility based on what's going on, give me a call. There's a lot going on in that. So I do represent NFL players, and you have to be certified with the NFL Players Union, which I have been for many, many years. And that's really I love representing players. It's really, really fun, and I love being involved with the union and the different issues that face our athletes in this country. In addition to that, I have a podcast. So if anybody just wants, which I call Representation Without Taxation, I talk about different sports issues from my lens, I guess. And then I interview different people. Like this week, I interviewed the athletics director at Penn State, who also happens to be a client of mine. And we talked about like what happened. How did this happen? How did the Big Ten get, completely shut down along with other leagues? And we talked about a lot of issues. That was really eye-opening. So I try to get good guests, just like you're doing here, Michelle, with your StreamYard, getting different guests. And then I met Michelle, and I wrote a book called Born to Be a Sports Agent. And
I have one too.
Yeah, she's got one too. Yeah. So anyways, I have lots of different aspects to my business. I also have another online course called Virtual Sports Agent, which is for players that have been out for longer than a year, to teach them how to, it's kind of like I become their virtual sports agent. And I created that too. So I have online courses, podcast, book, and I represent clients one-on-one. So yeah, it's kind of, I got a lot going on.
You always have a lot going on. That's your life, right? You like it.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do.
Okay, so you've been in the industry a really long time. Describe your experience being a woman in a male-dominated industry, because you were a sports agent when there were really no women sports agents.
Yes, my first client was in 1980. I think it was 87, which was my second year of law school. I don't know. I always forget if it was my second or third. But yeah, I had a client who was going to get in the NFL. It's actually one of the guys who played for my dad, and he needed help. And that's how I started into the agent business. I honestly didn't find that it was, I just did my work, and I didn't really think that much about being the only female. I had a client. The client was getting a contract at the NFL. I found out you need to be certified with union. I got certified with union, and that's really how I started. The agent business is very different now, okay, than it was, in 1988. It's a completely different, really, business model, because most people didn't have representation back then. Now coaches have them, players. But as far as being a woman, I didn't really find it to be any problem for me. But you don't know what other people are thinking. But I'm saying, from my perspective, I have a client, I'm representing my client. If I have what they want, they will call you. If I don't have what they want, they don't call you. It's pretty simple.
Yeah,
so,
and I think, probably some of that has to do with you've been around it since you were a kid, following your dad all over the campuses where he
I was always at a football practice or a football game or around football players, and so that really was what I know. That's how I grew up. And then so I didn't really find any. Now, that does not mean that there's not gender bias in this world, because we all know that there is. That doesn't mean that somebody treated maybe me differently because I was a female, maybe for the better. I may have gotten treated better. I don't know. But it's hard to tell, because I don't know how they are with everybody else. You see what I'm saying? When I've been self-employed, I didn't work for somebody else either. It's not like I had a boss. I am the boss, and I have been for that long. So it's a different, that could be a reason too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you've
Right.
you've gone along your journey, and what prompted you to write your book after all these years? And then what was the greatest personal lesson you learned while writing a book? Because, as I'll say every time, probably, writing a book is no joke. And you learned that.
No joke. It was hard, I can tell you that. But it's just something I always wanted to do, because I kind of wanted to share my background, but I also wanted to share about Sports Agent Academy, which is to mentor a young sports agent and tell people how I do it, because I think there's a lot of mistakes I would not have made if I'd had a mentor. So part of the book has to do with just helping other people who want to get in the industry, and then just telling some client stories and how I dealt with it. But truthfully, each client is different, so you just don't really know what's going to happen. So you just have to have some good problem solving skills, because lots of different stuff happens. So I just kind of always wanted to write a book, and you and I were introduced through another person that you had written a book for, and I had called him. He's a baseball agent, and he said, "Oh, I had Michelle Hill help me," and I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to call her." So I did, and I think the best thing that helped me, Michelle, that you and I did, is first you did an outline, which was super helpful, and then I just sat and I took my microphone and I'm pretty sure I did it in GarageBand, and I just recorded my story. And that was a lot easier for me by following the outline, right? So I think my biggest takeaway is I would do that. That's how we got it done pretty quickly, I thought. And then what was surprising to me was how much time it took after all that was done.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. There's a lot of moving pieces after the book is done that just need to be, executed to make it a book that you hold in your hands.
Yes. And I do like that I ended up just putting everything on Amazon, and I self-published, and I am in complete control of any time I need a book. I mean, I don't have to go through anybody. And I think that is another thing that's been, for me, really, really, I'm glad I did it that way. So, yeah. So
it's very self-empowering, and really you have the same reach, because it's the marketing is in your hands too. You can do as much as you want or as little as you want. So
exactly.
Tell people what the 3 main takeaways of your book are.
Well, one is just, my life growing up as a coach's kid and a coach's wife. Then the second part is really how I actually represent clients, NFL clients in particular. And then I sort of weaved in that really any sports agent can follow it in any sport, to be honest. It's a process that I follow. And then part 3 was client stories. So, some of my client stories, not all. Some people didn't want to be included in the book, as you know.
Yes, yeah, and that's okay. Yeah. But, the ones that are in there, I think readers can glean from them, from their story, and what they did right and what they did wrong.
Lots of Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what have you been doing since your book? Some things have happened, and what are you doing?
Well, I mean, since the book, I had a deadline for the book. We started in August, and I didn't want it to launch till January, but then I decided to get it done by November. So I actually moved up the date. And we had as you know, Michelle, we were at the AFCA convention, and I had a booth and I spoke. And I think the thing that I've used my book for really is, somebody who's thinking about choosing me as their representation, I like to give them a book. Okay. Yeah. And for me, it's been, because I think then they find out this is who I am. This is why I do what I do. And then they can figure out whether we're a good match, and I think by reading my book, you can figure that out pretty quickly, whether or not we would align. I think the other thing is, I have a podcast, so I'll talk about the book. From, if you want to get the book, you can get it on Amazon. You can get it on my website, Born to Be a Sports Agent. Just, so I've incorporated it in my marketing, in my Instagram. I have, obviously it's on Amazon, and then I have my own website too for the book. So yeah, so that's kind of, just been, representing different coaches. I have a lot of coaches, as you know. So yeah, no, my life hasn't changed. Are you wondering, like, did the book change my life? Is that what you're wondering? Or my direction of my business? Is that what you're thinking? Or just
what you're doing? Yeah, what you've done since your book. Your book has been out for a while. And, are you pretty much doing the same thing, just leveraging your book for, like you said,
leveraging my book. I also been guests on different podcasts, it just, leverage it, marketing piece, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay, that's wonderful. And really, my last question is a loaded question. You can answer in however you want to, but we're all in anticipation of the NFL season coming up and what that's going to look like. So, what are your thoughts about how the upcoming NFL season is going to play, pun intended?
It's been interesting because the spring, the union has done a fabulous job negotiating with the NFL on how to protect the players from a health and safety perspective, which is the A1 most important priority. I feel like the union and the NFL did a great job coming up with very specific ways to handle each different process. Okay. When the players were coming in, they had to be tested, every day. And then if the amount of positive tests were a certain amount, then it was going to be, every other day. And they kind of had this very specific process. In addition to that, players could voluntarily opt out or opt out if they had one of the medical conditions on the CDC, and they got a certain amount of money if they did either one of those things. And I just did a whole podcast on it if you want more of the details. Right now, what they're going to get down to 80 players, if they haven't already done that, pretty soon. And then they added 8 more practice squad spots. So now we're going to have a 53-man roster plus 16 practice squad spots. So they did add 8 more than they had previous to that. And they opened up how many people could, there's no, like somebody who's been out for a while still could be on the practice squad. That's not how it used to be. Okay. So they made some really good concessions, I think, because of worried if somebody does test positive, because here's everybody's concern. if somebody tests positive and you're in a meeting room with these other players and coach, it's likely that, it's going to spread easily, right? But I think they've done a really good job with the testing. I haven't heard recently exactly, how it's going, because also in their personnel at a team is not allowed to disclose any of that, right? So I don't really know how that's going, honestly. And right now they're just slowly working. They have this whole practice schedule that's completely different than before. They're not having any preseason games. So I think it just depends on how many people actually test negative, really.
Okay, now
not test positive, but test negative.
Yeah. Now, how would is that going to skew the games? Like if some players opt out, if premier players opt out, how is that going to affect their team versus other teams that don't, and players opting out?
The players had to opt out at the beginning of August. So the ones who have opted out have opted out. Okay. So they know who's in right now. Now, it's if somebody gets COVID, they actually have a new injured reserve list. It's actually a COVID list. So if somebody does test positive, they go on the COVID list. So, and then they have to quarantine for, until they, I think, test negative, and I can't remember how many times, but a couple times before they can enter back in. So, and that's why they made the extra practice squad spots, so that they can pull from the practice squad if somebody is out with COVID. So, until the seasons, and then there's lots of things in the new agreements they have. If they have to cancel, here's what the player's going to get, and it just keeps going. So they've pretty much figured out, at least the NFL and the players union have figured out all the different scenarios, and this is how we're going to handle it. So that's good. Do I think they're going to play? Don't know. We'll see how many people actually test positive. As we can see what happened in college football, I think too many people I mean, what happened in college football is apparently there's a new some new information from the scientists that the new mutation of the virus has been causing some heart issues. And that's really why the presidents across this country, at least most of them, said no. And college campuses are much different than an NFL team. When kids are living in the dorm and they're going to parties, I mean, it's just a whole different animal. So then, being in one building with all the same people that are going in and out and they're being tested, it's not as much of a controlled environment in college as it is in the NFL. Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, I've been really watching how's the NBA doing. Obviously, Major League Baseball, not so good, right? I mean, they've had positive tests and had to cancel games. So I don't know. I haven't looked today what's going on in the NBA, but have there been any positive tests for the NBA? Do you know?
I don't know that, but I did see that the CFL has canceled their season completely.
Oh, they did do that.
Yeah, I saw that on LinkedIn. So and that is really a huge feeder league. It's bigger than what people think. So they canceled their season.
Yeah. So to answer your question, the health and safety of the players will come first, and everything else will be secondary to that in the NFL. And they have very good protocols in place to make sure that's going to happen. And if the health and safety of the players and others that are in the building is at risk, we aren't going to, it'll be impacted. If not, if everybody doesn't test, if they can keep everybody testing negative, then I think we're going to see NFL play games.
Yes, and that brings up a question that just came up as you were answering that. do you think with the protocol that's in place for COVID, do you think that the NFL learned from the concussion protocol that they, the things that they maybe didn't do or did do or whatever? Do you think that played into, okay, let's really put some serious protocol for this one?
I think it was a completely different situation.
Mm-hmm.
They hired medical and scientists, the union did and the NFL did, and they listened to the scientists. That's what they did.
Okay.
And they came to an agreement. So, and I really feel like based on the situation, they did an excellent job. I really do. But hey, look, you still don't know, it seems to be highly contagious. People get it pretty easy. So, but I do think they also have things in place that if somebody does it, they're going to be quarantined and they're going to catch it right away.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. And that's really what's important, is that right away they're going to know because they're testing people all the time. So, and that's the key to not, and masks. I know one facility, they had desks spread out and each person had their own laptop and they're still doing all their teaching online. This is one of the NFL teams.
Okay. So
they weren't all in the same meeting room.
Okay. They're having team
but
meetings
not
online?
Together, meaning everybody has they each have their own desk and they're all spread out and they have their masks on and then they're Zooming. So they're not all in the same room together. And I'm talking about, and that's how one team was doing it. And I'm sure each team had maybe even stricter, guidelines depending on where they were. But yeah, I feel like they're being very careful, which is good.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I had to ask that question because that's the question of the day, is what's going to happen to the NFL season, because we've seen the NBA stop, temporarily, and we've seen what has happened in other leagues, but the NFL kind of stands alone, so that's.
Yeah. There is a lot of money at risk, so I'm sure they're going to do everything they can to be safe, and hopefully we have games. And, it's coming up pretty quick.
It is. And we would be watching preseason now if preseason games were playing, because they're typically in August, right?
Normally,
so.
Yeah, normally wherever I have a client at Denver, so I would be looking at his schedule and saying, well, maybe there's a game close enough, I'll go, to see how he's doing, but nope, no preseason.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, tell people how they can reach you, how they can get in touch with you.
Oh, okay. So you can get my book, Born to Be a Sports Agent, on my website. My website is jillmcbridebaxter.com. Yeah. Then I also have another website called Born to Be a Sports Agent, which is where you can order the book, or you can order it on Amazon. So I have it on all those spots. So yeah, and then if you just want to get a hold of me, you can email me at jillbaxter@me.com. Again, jillbaxter@me.com, or you can call me, which is 559-250-0151. That's it.
Can you say your number again? Because you were cutting out just a little bit.
My phone is 559-250-0151. And you can always type it. You want me to type it in the chat? I wonder if you can put it in.
StreamYard can do Facebook chat, but I will add it to the stream once it's.
Yeah,
I can.
Just add it underneath, just where they can get a hold of me. Yeah. So how are you, Michelle?
Well, I'm doing great, and I'm busy. I'm helping I would say a football scout, an NFL scout, with a book. So I'm really excited about that. A lot of great information. And the perk for me is that I get, like your book too, I learned so much about being a sports agent. And then now I'm learning about the scouting side, and he really goes into extreme detail. So I'm really excited about this one. Just writing the myths, can't say anything yet, but I'm excited about that one, and have some other things going on. So doing excellent. So
David's a good guy. He knows what he's doing. But scouts work so hard. People do not realize what a hard job that is. That is a very difficult job.
yeah.
And they travel everywhere. Now they can't right now, but nobody realizes that is just such a difficult and demanding job. So
it is, and they have to know so much about players and about what to look for, and there's so many intricacies to that. So I'm excited about that, working on that, and just working on my own thing. I have my ebook that I just released from pen to published, and it shows my whole process. It lays out the whole process, and so I am excited about that. And if anybody wants to get in touch with me, it's winningproof.com or winningproof@gmail.com. That's my email, or my phone number. Again, another phone number is 714-797-3731. 714-797-3731. And yes, that is a Southern California number. Jill is in Southern California, and that's what kind of bonded us from the very beginning, was because, you're from California. I spent my life in California. So that was really cool. But I tell people I will always keep my Cali number, because, I'll always be a Cali girl, even though I'm not living there, probably won't live there anymore. So, it's fun. So thank you so much for taking your time today and answering the questions and just being your vibrant self. We've had such a good time.
We have. And if anybody wants to write a book, you need to call Michelle. And Michelle, you need to come back on my podcast and we can talk about your ebook.
Oh, absolutely. It's a deal.
Okay, good.
Okay. Have a great day.
Bye, Michelle.
Bye, Jill.